Hello guys, gals and M-Pals, and welcome to another dive into trans representation within pop culture. In today's video we're going to be talking about the way that two trans people are presented within the TV show My Hero Academia. Now I'm not going to go into too much detail here about what My Hero Academia is all about because we're not really talking about the intricacies of that world, but in effect, heroes are real. People have powers, and they are heroes that are sanctioned by the government and by corporations, and they make money for them. And that's basically all we need to know for that, because we're not talking about any of the main characters or anything, so who cares. But within this context of a world I've just told you about, there are two important characters to discuss when it comes to trans representation and trans characterization. And that's these two people here. The first one is Tiger, who is from a group known as the Wild Wild Pussycats, who are a superhero group that goes around rescuing people from natural disasters and whatnot, and does a whole bunch of fighting-y stuff. They do superhero things, I don't know how else to describe that. But this guy, Tiger, is a trans man. It's not confirmed within the series, we never see anything talking about that, but within one of the manga at the very end it's discussed how he went to go get surgery down in Thailand, and that he is a trans dude. The other person is Magi. Magi is a trans woman. She is not a hero, she's a villain, she's part of the League of Villains, the main evil group of the series, and she helps them to attack the main character heroes and do all the fighting and stuff. And we have confirmation that she is trans within the TV shows itself, as that comes up in a later point that we'll discuss about in a little bit, but she also does have a bit more confirmation from the manga as well. So already off the bat, this is a lot of trans representation within a TV series. Generally speaking, TV shows don't have anybody, and this show has two whole trans people. And not just two whole trans people, but two whole trans people who fill quite different roles and quite different representations. So that's pretty interesting. But before we can get into discussing that, I want to just go over quickly who they are exactly in the show and what exactly they do. See, like I said beforehand, Tiger is a big macho dude who is a strong person of the Wild Wild Pussycats group, which is why he dresses up like he does, and he has the ability to change his body shape to whatever he wants, which, as you might already be guessing, for a trans person, is quite a useful ability. Being able to shape your body however you want it to be shaped is pretty useful if you are born into a body that you don't particularly like the look of, or your body develops in a way that you don't particularly enjoy. That's quite a powerful ability. He also, as a hero within this world, is able to be rich, have access to privilege and to wealth that allows him to blend in quite well with society, as is indicated by the fact that he's able to go down to Thailand and to afford the surgery, and everybody treats him as a man because he appears in a masculine format that, you know, appeals to the cis-normative way that we view men. That's him. Magi, on the other hand, is a little bit different. See, Magi is part of the League of Villains. She joined the League of Villains specifically because, as it said in the show, society shuns her. Society pushes her away, so she goes to the only group that's accepting of her, which is the League of Villains. And the League of Villains is accepting. They all give her the correct address, they all use the right pronouns, they all address her in the way that she wants to be addressed, they all give her the level of understanding and basic rights that Hero Society supposedly refused to, and as the heroes continually keep misgendering her, they kinda still don't particularly give her those rights. And all this starts really coming to a head in an episode where we see Magi's real backstory, where we finally get to see all of the stuff about Magi. We see her talking to another one of her trans friends, who is also in the same kind of boat, who doesn't particularly pass very well in society, but isn't brave enough to break out and go and join a League of Villains like Magi does. And this person tells them how they're so proud of Magi for, you know, standing up for herself and for doing what she thinks is right. And yet again, villain. Magi is supposedly a villain, and all of this culminates in Magi getting killed by a new villain on the block. Just utterly annihilated. And this new villain, who is a complete asshole by the way, then proceeds in a future episode to misgender Magi. The villains, the League of Villain people who came to talk to him, say, hey, no, that wasn't her pronouns, it was Big Sis, hey, don't be a dick about this, and he just goes, whatever, I don't care. So that's depressing. This does sort of a little bit fall into that depressing way that trans people finally get confirmed in a show, because this is the first episode where we see Magi really get confirmed as being a trans woman, and then immediately gets killed. We finally get her backstory, and then she's murdered and pushed off of screen. It reminds me quite a bit of that old stereotype of the show as you gaze, where people would have gay characters who appear briefly just so they can be there and be gay, and then get killed and immediately, discarded. It's a weird thing to shove into there, and it's very upsetting because I would have been much more intrigued to see exactly how Magi developed, or how they build as time goes on. But there is one interesting thing I want to talk about here quickly that is related to the whole trans stuff, and that's Magi's backstory here. See, this whole thing of Magi joining the League of Villains because no one else would accept her, that the whole hero society shunned her for who she is, and maybe she doesn't want to fit into the societal norms and standards for what people should look like or should act like. This is very similar to how all the villains kind of are. All the villains from the League of Villains are often people who just have mental illnesses, or act or dress or exist in a way that just doesn't work with normal hero society, and so they go and join the only group that seems willing to accept them for who they are, who seems willing to be nice to them, to be kind to them. And that group just happens to be the evil one. And the show My Hero Academia is a little bit shit on this front because it does struggle with this, where it has these characters who clearly have a lot of problems, but then it also tries to make it very clear that they are also just evil. Like, they have all these issues and they talk about how they have all these problems in the way they develop and stuff, and how they have these massive, societal factors that are built into who they are, but also they just like murdering people. So it's okay for the heroes to beat them up. They're bad guys. It's fine. They're the villains. Totally okay to beat them up, even if they have a whole bunch of good reasons for why they are who they are. And another aspect of that hero-villain dichotomy that I talked about briefly there was the wealth part. See, heroes are getting massively involved in the whole capitalistic nature, where the best heroes earn the most money because the most money is tied to merchandising and all of that kind of crap. And a lot of the villains are poor people. Are people who don't have any money, who are struggling, who are at the very bottom of society, whereas the heroes are rich people who have lots of money and prestige. And it's very weird to see that, and to see the show set itself up for that and then just completely fail at addressing that circumstance whatsoever. Like, My Hero Academia had a great chance to really talk about that whole hero-villain dichotomy and the way that maybe villains aren't that villainous and heroes aren't that heroic, but then because it's a shonen anime, it just kind of goes, nope, ignore that, we're just here for big fighty scenes and to see the hero get stronger over time, because it's not prepared to deal with the themes that it's trying to set itself up for. Anyway, to get us back on track a little bit here, because we were talking about trans people, these two characters, Magi and Tiger, actually give us quite a good look into some of the variances within the trans community. See, they actually represent very well the problem with passing privilege. If you don't know what passing privilege is basically the idea that certain trans people who are able, whether by money or by genetics or by a whole host of other reasons, are able to pass within cis society. People don't notice or know that they're trans, and therefore they are able to get away with not having to deal with a lot of the pressures and the issues put upon trans people. They are in effect able to escape the daily harassment and the daily targeting that a lot of trans people deal with. And this is where Tiger is. Tiger is a wealthy person from a wealthy background who, through not just their quirk is what superhero powers are called, and also their family's wealth, is able to pass perfectly, is able to match exactly what people would expect from a dude. And to that end, they get by totally fine. They are able to be a hero. They are able to meld into society in a way that doesn't disturb anything, that doesn't mix anything up. They do dress like a giant cat dude, but I think that's just baller, so I don't think I've got a problem with it. Everyone dresses pretty wacky in this world, so I don't think that really stands out too much. On the other hand, you have Magi, a trans woman who is described as very masculine in presentation, who doesn't have voice training, who doesn't have hormones, who doesn't have any of the surgeries or any of that kind of stuff, who doesn't have a quirk that lets them edit their body in a way that will match what people expect them to look like. They break all of those societal norms, and to that end, they are constantly misgendered, they are pushed to the side by society, they are, through their own backstory, forced to join the League of Villains because no one else will accept them. It's presumed that they struggle to get a job because of who they are, a trans woman who doesn't pass, and that's fascinating. For a show like My Hero Academia to somehow be able to represent these two drastically different perspectives on the trans community and on the way trans people are represented in society, that's amazing that a show can do that. That's kind of amazing to see a show do that, because I've seen shows that are supposedly woke and trying to be trans friendly or trying to represent trans people that fail to have this kind of interesting view on the realities of trans living. This is a very real look into how some trans people are. It's a very real look into the way that certain trans people are pushed to fringes because of what they can and can't achieve. This isn't that far from how a lot of trans people live. We all see how the trans celebrities who are normally very famous and very popular are those who pass. They are those who meet the expectations of what people want to see in their media or on their TV shows. And the trans people who don't meet that are shunned, are only ever really shown when it comes up to talking about news articles about the bad trans people or the evil trans people. Their looks and the way they are used as a way of engaging people's disgust and grossness with how different trans people are. And this TV show somehow gets that. And this is, I believe, based off what I understand of looking into the way My Hero Academia deals with this, and also the way My Hero Academia is created, is a completely accidental act of intricate trans reality and storytelling. Nobody intended for this to be discussed, and My Hero Academia doesn't go into detail on discussing or comparing these kind of lives. They're really just shoved in there. And it's only by people who are from the trans community or who are aware of these circumstances that this very intricate understanding can be seen. It's a complete mistake on the part of the creators, but it's a complete mistake that ends up being really good. That's just super fortunate. It's really lucky that that ended up working for them. And they clearly didn't intend it to be. With all of that aside, I did want to just point this out as a very interesting look into, from the perspective of characters within a TV series, the ways that trans people exist. I wanted to point it out because it is a sad reality for a lot of trans people that's portrayed in this sort of offhanded way that manages to strike a chord with the way that non-passing people are treated by a cis society. And that is, I think, very important to at least see, or at least to be able to recognise. It's always interesting to see these deep levels of trans discourse somehow portrayed within a TV series, even if the TV series had no intention of doing that, and it was just a complete and utter coincidence that that ended up becoming like that. The fact that this ended up being portrayed does give us opportunity to talk about this. It is opportunity to think about this more, especially for people who maybe aren't aware of trans communities or aren't aware of trans people that exist that don't have passing privilege, and for people to see the way that passing can have a big influence on certain people's lives. Looking at these kind of cultural portrayals is a great way to think further about the people that they're based upon, and to think further about the way that kind of stuff reflects what we have in our own world. Anyway, if you like what's on this video and you like what I've discussed about here and think it's interesting, then that's fantastic, that's great, that's what I love to see. You can like, share, subscribe, comment, all the usual YouTube stuff, you know how it is. If you really want to support this channel, then you can give me money on my Patreon, which I use to pay for rent and food mostly at this point, which is good because it means I get to keep a roof above my head and food in my stomach. Other than that, thank you for watching. I hope that this helps you to think more and to be more aware or more intrigued in the way that trans people are presented in shows, and have a great day.